This episode is brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place. Hi, thank you for joining us. This is Safe Place for Brown Girls, and we have Katie Stafford. So, Katie, tell us about you and your company.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Stafford. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and qualified supervisor of social work interns for the state of Florida.
Okay.
I'm also licensed in Indiana and Ohio to provide individual therapy services to adults ranging from 18 all the way up to 99 plus. I also, like I said, I'm a qualified supervisor for registered interns in the state of Florida.
Okay, that's amazing. Amazing work. Hi, welcome, Katie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, great. You're here at the Safe Place for Brown Girls, and we're talking about anxiety. So what do you think is the reason that Black and brown girls have anxiety?
Well, there are so many reasons. When I talk to my clients, one of the first things that I bring up is the societal pressure that is placed on Black and brown girls to perform, to stay silent, to be strong, to be resilient. That is not just a current societal expectation, but that's also a generational trauma. It's also an ancestral trauma. We can trace it all the way back to the dates of slavery, where you weren't really allowed to have big feelings. And so the idea of suppression of those emotions was important in order to survive. And so the reason why we see this a lot with Black and brown girls, where we have this anxiety that's not noticed, is because of this need to survive and thrive that we think we can only do if we don't show emotion.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what's the population that you work with?
So I like to say I'll see anybody,
Absolutely.
but my heart really is with women of color. So that's not exclusive to just African American and other women from the African diaspora, but it also includes Latina, Latinx, Middle Eastern women, Asian women, anyone who identifies as a woman of color, and even women who are white women, of course. So it's just women in general. I do treat men as well. I'm not discriminatory at all, but my heart really lies with treating women and helping them work through some of these things.
Absolutely. That's the population you feel the strongest bond towards and that you feel that you can heal.
Yeah.
So when you talk about anxiety in our community, how does it manifest itself?
Okay, so this is actually a really good question because a lot of times people have anxiety, but they don't realize they have anxiety. And one of the reasons why is because anxiety is a part of what I call the emotional rainbow, right? You have sadness, you have anger, you have happiness, you also have anxiety. Everybody has it, right? It's natural because it's what's required to keep you safe. If you didn't have anxiety and you saw a wild animal, you would not know to run. So, but with anxiety and how it presents in Black and brown people is sometimes it looks like lashing out, like aggressiveness, or it might look like procrastination. It might look like laziness, things like that. And so typically when we have that, we don't say, oh, you're anxious. We say, oh, you're an angry Black girl, or you're bitter, or you're aggressive, you're being lazy, or you're being too sensitive, because it can also look like crying spells. It can look like avoiding things. So then you have people saying, oh, you're being flaky. But really, no, I'm just having a lot of anxiety. And so I don't feel comfortable going in that space because it's giving me anxiety.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. So go deeper on that for me, Katie.
Okay, so I talked about like the behavior side of it. So I talked about how anxiety presents behavior wise, because again, you have the avoidance, you have the procrastination, you have the crying spells and things like that, the anger outbursts.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at like the deeper influences to those physical manifestations of anxiety, you have racing heartbeats, you have racing thoughts. I know that when my clients describe it, they'll say it's like I can't turn my brain off, right? Sometimes people will just be tense, or they'll be hyper vigilant, which is they're always on their toes thinking something will happen. That might look like I can't relax, or a better one, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's hypervigilance. That's what it looks like for a lot of folks. And like you see that it's really common in relationships where people can't really relax and settle into their relationships with a person because they're waiting for something bad to happen, because history has told them that anytime I get comfortable or I settle into something, something bad is going to happen. So then they're not able to really be at peace. And so that's what we would consider like the actual symptoms and signs of anxiety are, and they just manifest in these other behavioral contexts.
I've had patients tell me that they feel like they want to tear their skin off.
Yeah, restless.
Yes,
Yeah.
restlessness. I think that brown and black girls are less likely to identify anxiety than our white counterparts.
Yeah, and statistically speaking, that is true. Whereas 1 in 3, I think it's statistically speaking, black and brown girls are less likely to be treated for these things. I saw some statistics a while back where it was like 40, we make up like 14% of the population, but less than maybe 3 to 5% of us actually go get therapy and actually address these mental health concerns. However, there's an even larger portion of us, I think it's like 9.1 million, that reported some type of mental health concern. So it's like we'll know that it's there, but then we're not accessing care in the same way as our white counterparts.
I think also the church, family, the stigma that mental health issues has in our community.
Yeah.
And we're, especially Haitians, we tend to go to...
Is it like the pastor or something in the church?
No, not the pastor.
Okay. The voodoo priestess.
The voodoo priestess.
Listen, but that's such a common thing. People do that now, even where they go they go and buy all these crystals and things. That's what you see now, like crystals and sage. That's really big right now.
Yeah.
Because instead of going to talk about it, it's like, oh, I can find solace in doing all these things. I saw a TikTok once where the girl had all of this stuff. She had like a red light mask. She had these boots that she was jumping around on. She had a book, she had crystals, she had a Tibetan singing bowl, doing everything but talking about what was going on with.
Not to say that those things don't work and can add to your therapy.
Absolutely.
But that's definitely traditional therapy. And I think if you need it, medication is really warranted.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay.
You actually said something really important when you touched on family and religion being a part of the reason why we do struggle with going and seeking help.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you've encountered with like people that you've seen, that they've told you that that's some of the barriers?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in the Caribbean community. A lot of people feel like if you have mental health issues, it's some kind of curse that's been put on you, and they seek remedy in like rituals or seeking remedies, going to a voodoo priest, and not actually addressing that this person has really deep-seated depression and anxiety.
Yeah. And that's big, and that's even big here in church culture. Is if you are having anxiety or depression, it symbolizes some type of lack in your relationship or your faith, your respect for God, and that's why you're struggling, and you should pray more.
Yes.
And yes, I absolutely think that you can pray. I feel like therapy and prayer can be partners in the
conjunction
process, but it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yes.
But because it's so ingrained in our mind is that if you do have struggles, or if you are being affected by your struggles, it's because your prayer life isn't together.
Yeah, God has punished you.
God is punishing you for something. Yeah, and then that's the one too. God is punishing you for something, but it's like, no, you're human.
Correct. With human emotions.
Yeah, that's why you have it. You're human.
And unable to balance your emotions.
Yeah.
It's just a learning. It's how to learn how to manage your anxiety. Because like you said, we all have it, but it's learning how to manage it.
Yeah, learn how to manage it. And that's why you would go to therapy in the first place, is to develop the skills and the tools and the strategies to manage your anxiety. Because otherwise, you're just going to be out here doing stuff and not really fixing anything, but probably making the problem worse.
So what do you think anxiety looks like behind closed doors versus what people see?
So sometimes it can look like self-doubt. A lot of times it could look like self-judgment. Like perfectionism is a really big one. So
I suffer from that.
Me too, bro. I feel like we all got a little taste of the perfectionism.
Absolutely.
But yeah, things like that, taking a long time to decide what we're going to do, being indecisive, having difficulty solving our own problems. That's mostly what I can think of right now. It's usually like difficulty with decision making, following through on things as well. Like we get hung up on details, and so we just don't follow through on things. But you have like a million incompleted projects because you're just having a hard time focusing your thoughts to do something about it. But like, what are those thoughts about? Like, what's the content of those thoughts? And that's how you determine whether or not it's anxiety.
Do you think anxiety, and because what you were describing sounds to me like a touch of ADHD.
It can be.
Do you think that there's a connection?
It can be. Sometimes the symptoms from ADHD can exacerbate the anxiety. And so I'm diagnosed with ADHD. And before I started medication for it, I had a really hard time starting things, finishing things, all of that. And because I was having such a hard time, it then affected the way that I would talk to myself. So then I would judge myself very harshly. And I thought it was just that, oh, I'm a perfectionist, and that's why it's so hard for me to work through these things. That's why it's so hard for me to finish it. That's why it's so hard for me to start.
Okay.
But that wasn't the problem. The problem was my brain was moving too fast. My brain was moving too fast. I had too many tabs open, and I couldn't prioritize which one needed to be done first. And so once I got the medication, then I was able to recognize when it was anxiety and actually do something about the anxiety.
I see.
Versus just kind of be left to my own devices and trying to figure out life while also beating myself up because I couldn't figure out life.
So do you think ADHD masks the anxiety, or the anxiety masks the ADHD?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that ADHD can sometimes mask the anxiety, but because we're more familiar with the anxiety than we are the ADHD, we just think it's all anxiety.
Okay.
And so again, that's why it's so important to get assessments done with professionals so that they can help you figure out, okay, what's the core issue? Let's resolve the core issue. And then once you resolve the core issue, then you can resolve the other things that are going on too.
Okay. Why do you think anxiety in Black women goes undiagnosed or misdiagnosed?
That's actually a really good question. And the misdiagnosing is actually very, very common.
What do you think it's misdiagnosed for?
With anxiety, maybe like major depressive disorder. Like
Mhm.
a lot of times I think anxiety gets misdiagnosed as depression related disorders because of the anger and the irritation
Yes.
and the avoidance and the isolation. Because you can have that with both, right? You can also have the crying spells with both. You can even have suicidal ideations with both, right?
Right.
But I think what happens is people just look at the overall fact that you're angry and you're sad because you can't figure out what to do and what's going on. And they just say, oh, that's depression. But it's not depression. And then what happens is when people get misdiagnosed and then they're mistreated because they're misdiagnosed, they don't experience the benefit of the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's a mistrust. And then with mistrust comes avoidance. And so then you just avoid the healing space altogether. And then you just go untreated.
Okay.
Yeah. And then not only that, when you think about the fact that there are less than a million African American mental health professionals
Yeah.
for for however many million Black people there are, there's also not that representation.
And how do you feel like the or the underrepresentation
Mhm.
of Black and brown professionals in the mental health space
Mhm.
affects our population or our demographic?
Well, I mean, you have to speak on even your own experience with that, because I know me personally, when I seek out any professional, I'm gonna seek out a Black one first.
Absolutely. And I seek out a Black female, a Haitian Black female.
Exactly. I'm gonna seek me a Black one first.
Absolutely.
But if I go into a space and like the majority of what I have to choose from is somebody that doesn't look like me, then I'm going to be discouraged from trying to find someone. And then when you do find someone, let's say that they're completely booked or their caseload is full, then I'm going to be, again, discouraged to continue the search because I found someone, but they're not taking clients. Then let's say you find someone and you work with them and the connection is just not there. So now I don't want to do this again. It's not an easy thing going to talk to a therapist and opening yourself up, even if it's just in a consultation. And then you realize after like a session or two, or even after that call, that is not a good fit. And then you have to do it again. Like, that's not something that you really want to do. I've had to change therapists twice now.
Oh, wow.
The first one, it wasn't her fault. She was actually a really great therapist. We just got to a point where we stopped working together and it was natural ending. The second one, it was kind of her fault. It's kind of her fault. But to have to then meet with another therapist and reopen all of that stuff, even though I know that it's healing to do so, I can't imagine for a person who's not familiar with that process and doesn't understand the benefits of it. I can't imagine them being like, oh yeah, I'm excited to go talk about this again. Yeah, let's go pour out my trauma for the fourth time to a new person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard enough to ask for help from somebody that you know. But imagine having to go and ask for help from somebody that you don't. And then having to go and dust off these really dark corners of your soul and have to bear that to somebody that you don't know when you have difficulty asking for help from somebody that you do.
Have you ever been told that you were aggressive or the typical Black woman, angry Black woman?
So maybe not angry and aggressive, but definitely sensitive. And that's one that comes with anxiety too. And that difficulty expressing emotions is you're being too sensitive or having your emotions invalidated. So I've had that a lot. And then what it does is it makes you question whether or not what you're feeling is real.
I see. Let's talk about people pleasing. How does that connect to anxiety in Black women?
Okay, so all right, so let's talk about anxiety and some of the things that we haven't touched on. So for people who don't know, anxiety it manifests as fight, flight, fawn or freeze, right? So fight, obviously, aggression. Flight is you run away. Freeze is you just kind of stay as still as possible. And then fawn is the people pleasing aspect, which is you try to appease whatever the perceived threat is so that you can maintain some type of control and safety in a situation.
Okay.
What was your question?
My question, people pleasing. How do you connect people pleasing with anxiety?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I answered it, and I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a part of that fawn response, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that need to appease whatever you believe the threat to be, so that you can establish some sense of safety. And then there's a more, when we take that like a little bit further, right? There is another part to ourselves. It's like the only way I can really describe it is like cave dweller, right? It's very undeveloped part of ourself that requires this, right? It requires a people pleasing fawn response to things. And that goes back to a time when we were like tribes people, because it's supposed to protect you from being abandoned or rejected.
Okay.
Right? And so when we were tribes people, if you did anything that meant that you got rejected from the group, you were more likely to die because you were out on your own, right? And so there's a part of your brain that's still connected to that piece, that older, very undeveloped piece of humanity. And so that's how it shows up. It shows up in the people pleasing, because it's like, if I don't do this, then you will cast me out.
I'll be shunned.
I'll be shunned. And I can't have that, because that feels like death. It doesn't mean that you'll die, but your brain doesn't know the difference between the feeling and the actual truth. It's up to you to tell it what's true or not.
Absolutely.
That's where the people pleasing for people in general shows up. Now, for Black and brown girls, again, we're navigating spaces that aren't necessarily friendly for us.
Okay.
And so in order to maintain safety, sometimes we do have to do that people pleasing thing. A really good example of that is code switching.
Yes, especially at work.
Oh, it was lovely to see you today. Oh my gosh, the weather is beautiful, isn't it? So it's like you can't really show up how you truly are, because
your authentic self.
You can't, because you have to make sure that these people accept you as you are, or you might not be able to stay in your role in your with your employment. You might not get contracts. Another way it shows up, probably very controversial, but with straightening of the hair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
because, but again, that's one of those ancestral trauma things. You have to keep yourself looking a certain way. You have to keep yourself presentable, because you won't be accepted in spaces where you don't look the part.
I see.
And so it takes the focus off of what you genuinely have to offer in these spaces and puts it on what you need to do for the sake of survival. And that's how it shows up for Black and brown folks.
Okay.
Black and brown girls.
Are there other ways that people pleasing shows up?
Yes. And so difficulty with assertive communication.
Okay.
So like telling people when they've done something that has hurt your feelings or that was test to your boundaries.
Okay.
Boundary setting as well, especially in relationships, not wanting your partner to get upset or not wanting your partner to leave you. And so sometimes we'll tolerate things that we wouldn't naturally want to tolerate because we don't want them to leave.
Okay.
Right. And I know that with this is, and I know I'm probably telling on some of my friends when I say this, because I know that we have this tendency to say out loud to everybody who can hear, oh, I would never take that. Or I would never allow so-and-so to treat me like that. I would never let so-and-so, that couldn't be me to let them talk to me like that.
Better than me.
Oh, you better. Right. But in reality, no, you're not. You probably do this. You do like little micro dosing of it in the relationships that you have with people, because Everybody does it. Everybody has this thing that's like, I don't want to let go of it because there are these good things to it. So then we won't set the boundaries in order to keep it around.
Okay.
Right. And so that's how people pleasing shows up. Sometimes in our relationships too. Boundary setting with work and with time, our time that we spend at work, right? So wanting to make sure that we do the best job possible at work. And so we overwork or we overextend ourselves.
You spent countless hours trying to do
for the promotion.
Exactly.
Yeah, trying to do the corporate climb, right? Trying to earn our place and prove our value and our worth by the things that we do. So, that's another form of people pleasing, because it's like, well, I need to show you that I'm valuable. But the thing is, we're all born with intrinsic worth, right?
Absolutely.
We're worthy just because we're people.
Yes.
Right? It's not necessarily connected to the things that we do. But again, because we have that very primal part of us that says, no, you have to do this in order to not be rejected.
Absolutely.
Then we tend to do that. I think in neuroscience they call it the lizard brain.
Yes.
The lizard brain.
And so you feel like you're nothing if you're not successful.
It becomes your identity.
It's your identity.
Yeah.
What are you if you're not a mother? What are you if you're not a good child? You're not taking care of your parents. What are you if you're not a successful in corporate world?
You're bad, you're damaged good, you're no good. And so then we fall into this trap where we continue to do it because I don't want to be labeled as difficult.
Exactly.
I don't want to be labeled as unlovable. I don't want to be labeled as unworthy. So I'm going to just do it.
Can you share an example of someone who struggled with this? Maybe a story of when people pleasing led to burnout or anxiety?
I can give you a personal story. My own challenge with people pleasing actually resulted in me having a panic attack.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When was this?
This was like almost 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I realized it was really a problem. And it was because I'm not going to use names.
Okay.
Because people can get real sensitive, Sometimes folks don't like to take accountability for the things that they do just yet. And so I'm pretty sure outing them like this wouldn't be the best thing for our relationships.
Absolutely.
But there was somebody who wanted me to do something for them. But at the same time, I wanted to live my life. I was young, I was dating, and I was having a really good time with the person that I was dating. And so I did what the person asked me to do, and I just kind of went on my merry way. And what happened was they were in school, and so they didn't get the grade that they were hoping to get. It had nothing to do with me.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with me. It was like a test that they were taking or something. And what they did was they called, and because they were upset, they called and they just harassed me continually. While I was in the middle of having a good time with the person I was dating. We weren't having sex. We were just hanging out. So we were just out and about having a good time, and they just relentlessly harassed me to the point where I was like, okay, I need to go, because if I don't go and respond to this person, it's not going to get better. But at the same time, I was having internal conflict because I was enjoying what I was doing so much that I didn't want to leave. And so I ended up having a panic attack because the two parts of me were warring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Listen, I'm therapy, girl.
Yeah, you healed.
Therapy. I'm healing.
Healing, absolutely. We're always healing.
Always healing.
Yeah, it's a journey or a process.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a challenge. And what helped me in that moment was the person I was dating actually stopped and we just prayed. We prayed, and he helped me get through how I was feeling. And then we made an intentional choice to just continue what we were doing. And I just put my phone on silent, and I focused my attention to what I was doing in the moment and took it off of how this person was going to feel. Because at the end of the day, they were going to feel how they were going to feel, whether I went immediately and addressed the situation or whether I waited and addressed the situation. Their feelings weren't going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how can you tell anxiety is rooted in people pleasing?
You can tell by how you feel when you're doing the task, when you're doing whatever it is you're doing, right? So if you feel resentful while you are, doing whatever task it is, then it's likely that it's rooted in being there for the other person.
I see.
So when you feel good about what you're doing, you know that you're doing it for you.
Okay.
But when you feel strain, like anger, resentment, frustration, irritation, and it's towards the activity or towards that person, then you're probably not doing that for you. You're doing that for them.
How can you heal yourself from being a people pleaser?
Well, the first thing you have to do is really acknowledge and validate the fact that it is there, right? Because like I was saying earlier, a lot of times we like to carry this mantle of, oh, I don't do that. Right? That doesn't apply to me. That's like one of my favorite things to say to people a lot of times. That doesn't apply to me, but really deep down inside it does. Right? So the first thing you have to do is at least acknowledge that it's something that you do.
Okay.
And then you can ask yourself, start to be curious about it and see how this shows up, where it shows up, and then ask yourself, what would I do if I didn't need that person's approval in this moment? And then you do that.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. What would I do if I was really, truly honoring my boundaries? Like, what are my boundaries? What do I want?
And what do I need?
What do I need? That's another one.
Absolutely.
And then you honor that. And then notice how you feel when you honor those boundaries. And then, that way when you're faced with that decision again on whether or not you want to people please or make a choice that's for yourself, you can remember how you felt when you did set that boundary.
Have you ever personally had to confront your own people pleasing habits? And what did it look like?
I do it every day.
Okay.
I have to do it every day. And sometimes it sucks.
Well, what does it look like?
So to confront my people pleasing, I have to get really honest with myself and say, girl, do you really want to do that? So like sometimes I'll have to stop. Like if someone asks me if I want to do something or ask me if I can do something, that's the more specific question. If someone asks me if I can do something, I'll stop and I'll say, hey, can I get back to you on that? Okay. Because I know that my general answer to a lot of things is yes, I do want to do that, right? And then afterwards I'll be like, oh, I didn't want to do that. Or I don't want to do that. But then I feel bad because I'm like, oh, I feel like I can't change my mind now.
Exactly.
Right?
Obligated. You
Yeah.
feel obligated.
Obligated now because I said yes.
Absolutely.
So now what I do is I'll stop and let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Let me pray about it and get back to you on that. Or I need a minute to think about that. And then I give myself some time and I ask, okay, if we do this, why are you doing it?
Okay.
Are you doing it because you want to? Or are you doing it because you're trying to prevent them from feeling some type of way?
Okay.
And then depending on what my answer is there, then I'll say, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Like somebody actually just asked me a question earlier today. I think it was earlier today or last night. It was last night. Somebody asked me if I wanted to do something last night. And I was like, let me pray on that. Because in the moment, I wanted to do it. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. But then I slept on it. I was like, I don't want to do that.
No.
I wanted to say yes because I felt like if I said no, it would have made me look like a bad person. But then I slept on it. I was like, I'd rather say no and not be a bad person.
Exactly.
Because if
your needs.
Yeah, if I say yes, and then I don't really want to say yes, and then I do it, then my heart's not going to be in it.
Exactly.
It's not going to come out good. So then I am going to be a bad person.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
And you feel resentful as well,
Oh, yeah.
when you're doing it. So might as well just set healthy boundaries and be your true authentic self.
Yeah, and then it's like resentment, like things like that resentment that we try to say that we don't have, it shows up in our actions. Like, I don't know if you've ever said yes to something that you didn't want to do, but just think about that. Like, you start you have a little attitude while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you're doing it, but you're like slinging stuff around and
Mm-hmm.
pouting and stomping, and your body language sucks because you really don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You're just there because you said yes, not because you genuinely want.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's how I do that.
And how do you think Black women can begin to recognize when they're struggling with anxiety?
By being, well, first of all, knowing what their anxiety shows up as.
Mm-hmm.
So again, recognizing when they are irritated about something, what is it that they're irritated about?
Mm-hmm.
When you are frustrated or feeling impatient, what is it that you're frustrated and impatient about? We have to approach our emotions with curiosity
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and we fail to do that. We just kind of let them wreak havoc, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like I like to say it's like we have a bus. We
Okay.
have like a charter bus full of emotions, and every so often one of them will hijack the bus. And we don't really pay attention to the fact that we're not in control anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we approach the emotion with curiosity to figure out what does it want, like, okay, so what's going on? Like, why are you running us through brick walls right now? What's going on? Then you can acknowledge if it is anxiety
Okay.
and meet that need in that moment, that security need.
And how do they recognize it?
Journaling. There's this app that I recommend everybody use. It's called How We Feel.
Okay.
It breaks the emotions down into 4 different groups, which is high, unpleasant, high energy, pleasant, low energy, unpleasant, low energy, pleasant, and identify exactly what it is you feel. Don't just say, I feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel bad? What is it? Like, really elaborate on it.
So in anxiety, you can actually feel pleasant.
You can, because
Okay.
anxiety is, so the thing is, like, the physiological feeling of anxiety is the same as the physiological feeling for excited.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I mean when I say you have to sit down and actually figure out what are you feeling.
Okay.
Because you might be feeling anxious, but are you anxious and are you afraid of something happening that's going to be bad?
Mm-hmm.
Are you anxious and you're afraid of something happening that's going to be good?
Good.
Or you're looking forward to, not afraid. You're anxious and you're looking forward to something that's going to be good. Those two things feel exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to check in with yourself. I'm feeling this way. What is this about? What is this trying to tell me? All emotions are a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you're trying to tell me? Are you uncomfortable? Okay, cool. How can we make you comfortable? Are you concerned something is going to happen? Okay, cool. What can we do to help you feel secure in this moment if something happens?
Happens. Okay.
So just checking in with yourself.
I hear you. What would you say to somebody that's afraid to ask for help because it'll seem like they're weak?
Well, I would say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at your mental health the same as you would your physical health, right?
Absolutely.
If you broke your leg, you wouldn't say, oh, I can't go to the doctor because it's going to make me look weak. It's like, girl, your leg is broken.
Yes.
So it's the same thing with your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
If you are emotionally struggling, you go to someone who can help you work through that, because otherwise you just out here limping,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally limping,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not addressing it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would tell them, look at it as though it's a body part that needs
Absolutely.
healing versus something that you can't see, that you don't understand.
They actually believe that there's part of the brain called the amygdala, that it's like a boil on on the amygdala, you know? So, but why do you feel like Black and brown women are less likely to address their issues with anxiety?
There are so many reasons why. So if we just talk about the historical context and, the presence of racism and the systems that are in place, and the general mistrust that Black and brown people have of the healthcare system,
Okay.
that alone is one of the barriers to addressing mental health, because we've been experimented on for so long that nobody wants to go and have to take that more vulnerable side, because that's the mind, that's different, you know what I mean?
Okay.
A lot of people have a lot of respect for the mind, and they feel like if you can play with someone's mind, then you can sort of control them in a sense. And so that might turn some people off from, seeing mental health care. In addition to, like we've already covered, the religious bias and the family dynamics, and what we talk about in the house stays in the house kind of thing.
Okay. What therapy approaches do you believe helps with people pleasing?
So that depends on how deep you want to go into the root of the issue, right? Because people pleasing is rooted in low self-worth. So it depends, right? So you could do like basic acceptance commitment therapy, right? And that's very basic, general, accepting the discomfort that comes with feeling guilty about not meeting someone's expectations or standards, and still committing to your values. So you clarify your values and say, I'm going to choose that over you.
Okay.
Right. You could do cognitive behavioral. I feel like people CBT everything.
Yes.
And
It's first line.
I was going to say it's helpful. It helps you really understand the root of a lot of things. But as far as like resolving things, I would say ACT is like the first line, right? And then if you want to go deeper into that and really get in touch with those parts of you that might be influencing that need to people please,
Okay.
you could use like internal family systems. And that, oh my gosh, it's
Describe that for me.
something, man.
Okay.
So I'm just learning about it myself.
Okay.
But the basic premise is there are these different parts of you that are warring with each other in order to keep this feared part of you out of the limelight. It's to protect. It's basically to protect you from this thing that they call the exile.
Okay.
Right. So there's the protector. There are these firefighters, and then there's the exile.
Okay.
And the exile might be something like fear of abandonment, right?
Okay.
But then you'll have like these protective parts, like there's a judgmental part maybe, and there's an angry part maybe, or there's a people pleaser part maybe, right? And the people pleaser, the judgmental part, and the angry part are all fighting each other. But the people pleaser is trying to protect the part of you that's afraid of being abandoned.
Oh, I see. I
Right.
see.
And so it's really interesting. Like I said, I'm just starting to learn a little bit more about it. But modalities like that are good if you want to go deeper.
Absolutely.
You can also do like EMDR and other trauma work, trauma-based therapy.
Maybe later we can talk more about the therapies.
Oh yeah.
That's
I'm
really
down for that.
yeah, that's really
I'm
interesting.
down for that. The IFS right now, because it's so brand new to me and I am learning more about it, it's kind of my favorite
Okay.
right now
Okay.
because it's very impactful. It makes you go deep.
If someone is struggling and listening to the podcast, what's one thing you'd like them to hear today?
That people pleasing is often a trauma response and not a personality trait.
Okay.
And so when it shows up, it's not because that's who you are.
Ah,
It's
okay.
a response to a need that hasn't been met.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
I would also say that anxiety is not a character flaw. It's your brain's way of communicating to you in response to a threat that it perceives.
Okay. So thank you, Katie, for coming and having the conversation with us. I know so many of our listeners are really resonating with this information and really need it. So if you haven't already, please take a chance to like, share, and follow Safe Place for Brown Girls. And also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. This episode was brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and Brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place.